I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining the show tonight. I am your host, as always, Dano Hamilton. Hey, you guys, thank you so much for supporting the show. You guys, we've got just a few more hours before the giveaway ends at 11:59 tonight. So if you would like to be part, you know what? Sorry, guys, I forgot. This is not going to be airing until a couple of weeks from now. So it's too late. Sorry. Anyway, you guys, I got a really cool guest. Robbie follows the channel. We've chatted back and forth, and he's had a pretty cool encounter. I'll let you know, or I'll let him tell you what he calls his encounter. But before we bring Robbie on, if you guys have had an encounter you'd like to come on the show, don't forget, email me at thecryptidpodcast72@gmail.com. So you guys, let's go ahead and bring Robbie onto the show. Robbie, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good, man. So yeah, you and I talked a little bit, and you're going to talk about your Bigfoot sighting, and I can't wait for you to tell everybody what you named your sighting, which is cool. And then you also hinted at a UFO encounter.
Yeah.
So before we get into those, let me ask you, what kind of got you interested in this, in this subject matter?
Well, when I was younger, me and my best friend, we always milled around his dad's place, and he had a ridge site. I think it's something like 13, 14 acres, and we kept seeing something, and we were like telling everybody, "Oh, I think we saw Bigfoot," and of course, everybody ridiculed us, made fun of us. You're just a kid, you don't know what you saw. But we were, eyesight was a lot better back then, and we saw pretty clearly. But never anything real definitive. Just a flash here and a little bit of looked like something peeking around a tree there. And then it got to where people were trying to like buy gorilla mask and trying to spook us and stuff like that. I just kind of like washed it away. It's like, okay, maybe it was just always somebody pranking us.
Yeah.
And then I watched, the TV shows and different, things that would come on. Leonard Nimoy. I can't. What's that show called? I can't even think of the name of it right now.
Yeah. In Search of.
In Search of, yeah, that's it. Typical stuff, and then the Patty film. And I always, I believe that's there. I never had any doubt that was not real. And then later on, I started hunting at 13. I would go out in the woods by myself. My dad never was a hunter. He never even really liked guns. So I just took that up with my friends, and I'd go hunting. I'd get up, 2 a.m. I head off to the woods by myself with a recurve bow, 3 arrows, and a little 3-inch pocket knife in case I was to actually trip on a deer and get one. Didn't know what I was doing much, but the actually one of the first times I ever really got scared was I thought I saw a bear, and this area where I hunted, people kept cows, and they get it like a lease from the TVA, and it was an island basically, and so I get up there and I'm sitting there and I'm up about 6 foot in a tree, and I see a dark spot. And I was like, "Oh crap! There's something there. That's not a deer." I notch an arrow, and then it's starting to get a little brighter, and I'm like, "Okay, that's definitely black. That's not a deer." And then I'm thinking, "Holy crap, that's a bear!" So I draw the arrow back, and I'm holding it. It's like a 45-pound recurve. I'm holding it. Finally, I get enough light and see it's a dead cow laying there.
Oh, wow.
And I've been there for like 5 minutes. My arms, starting to really work me and everything. And I felt so stupid afterwards.
Yeah.
But, and then I was afraid somebody thought we might think I killed the cow. So I got the hell out of there.
Yeah.
But,
so let's get into your, let's get into your encounter, because you honestly, when you told me what you named it, man, I'm like, I already know what I'm gonna do for the thumbnail of this
Yeah.
episode. So, you guys, let's let Robbie take over.
Okay, back in 2017, I would lots of times I would keep a little 22 rifle in my truck, and when I would get off from work, I wouldn't always feel like just going home. I'd go squirrel hunting, and there's a patch of woods about a mile from my house. So one day I go up there, and I'm not 7,500 feet from the road. I'm up in the tree line. I think I see a squirrel. It's probably 75 feet, maybe. Little 3-power scope. Nothing big. 22 semi-automatic 10 shot. So I decide I'm gonna at least see if I can scope this squirrel out. So I lean up against a big tree, and I'm sitting there and I'm scoping. I'm scoping. I'm still not sure I'm seeing what I think I'm seeing. And then from behind me, I hear the most god awful thumping. It was definitely bipedal footsteps coming directly at me. And like I panic, I spin around. I've got the 22 up like it's going to do anything against anything big. In my head, I'm thinking an elk. That's what I'm thinking, but it couldn't have been an elk because it was bipedal, but it sounded like something 1,500 pounds just bearing down on me. And I spin around, and there's nothing there. There's just nothing. And this isn't like really thick woods, so I can see very well around me. And I'm just petrified. I'm mortified. I don't know what's going on. I'm a little confused. I'm sitting there just trying to find anything. And I stood there a good probably 5 minutes, and I'm looking and looking, and I don't see anything. There's nothing there, but I feel like there's something there. I feel like there's got to be something in front of me. So I eventually start to move, and I made a semicircle out about 75 feet, and I'm looking for anything that could have made a big noise. Maybe I was mistaken. Maybe it was a tumbling rock, or maybe a large limb fell and bounced. I'm trying to make it make sense. And then I hear in the back of my head, "You need to leave." And this wasn't my voice. This wasn't God's voice. I've heard God speak to me. This was deep. It was guttural. It was terrifying. And I heard, "You need to leave." So I'm thinking, am I losing my mind here? Something's not right. And so I hang around for another couple of minutes, and I'm looking, and then I hear it again. Powerful, deep, leave now. And I did. I wasn't hanging around any longer. I went and got in my truck. I got out of there. I I don't go hang around there anymore. Used to spend a lot of time over my life in these woods, and I don't go over there now. I took a friend over to show him where it happened, and he was like, "Hey, come on, man, listen." I was like, "No, no, I don't like being here. I'll probably never feel right about that spot again." So that was in 2017. So I've kind of, I gave up hunting, and that bothers me because I've always hunted since 13. I loved being in the woods. Even if I wasn't hunting, I would just take off and walk 2 or 3 miles, just checking things out, looking for tracks. So I wouldn't call myself a great hunter. I spent a lot of time in the woods. So 2021, Christmas morning, and this is why I call it Christmas morning Bigfoot. I'm gonna go up to my parents. My parents live a few miles up the road, and it's 8:30 Christmas morning. I get my truck, I head up through there, and my wife had told me, she said, "Hey, the other day I was going toward your mom and dad's, and I saw a massive buck up on the ridge down there." And I said, "How big are we talking?" She said, "Like 12, 14 point, huge rat." She said, "Probably the biggest buck I've ever seen." was like, cool. Like, you know, maybe I could, maybe I could convince myself to maybe get back in the woods if I saw this big buck. That would be something that would, you know, it's been a few years. Maybe I could convince myself to go back. So as I go up through there, it's a small road. It's a country road. As I get to the area, and this is the exact same area where I had my 2017 experience, I'll slow down. I'm running like 25 miles an hour. I'm looking up the ridge. I'm like, oh, I hope I see this big monster buck. It's not what I saw. There, right in front of me, you know, 65, maybe 70 feet at the most. It's a Bigfoot. It's a huge Bigfoot. I mean, I don't want to say huge compared to what some stories I've heard, but I mean, 8 foot. I mean, that's big. I'm 5'7". That 8 foot looks pretty big to me. It was walking in the same direction that I was traveling, so it was on my left side. I look and I'm like, holy crap! I mean, like that's it. That's a Bigfoot. There's nothing else it could be. It was reddish brown. It had hair about that long, and as it was walking and taking steps, I could see the hair swaying off the back of its leg. Uh, like I said, I'm doing like 20, 25. It's not outpacing me, but I'm not driving off and leaving it. So it wasn't running; it was walking. It was a steady, patty type walk. I saw it from behind mainly. I didn't see a face, and it's just trucking along through the woods. I see it for a good 5 seconds. And I've had people tell me, oh, that's not very long. Okay. Right now, stop and look at something for 5 seconds. You got a pretty good look at that, didn't you? Well, that's how long I saw this thing. And I'll never forget it. No one will ever convince me otherwise. I know what I saw. It was trucking on through the woods. It paid me no mind. You know, I've got a 4x4. It had to hear me coming. I don't understand. If it had just stood still, there's a chance I might not have seen it. It would have been maybe blended in with the trees. I mean, everybody knows that knows anything about them. They blend in pretty well. It was just walking, like oblivious that I was even there. And you know, I've done quite a bit of photography in my life. I've done wedding photography, racetracks, drag cars. You know, I've done quite a bit. Uh, my phone was laying right there beside me. Never even thought about it. I was oblivious that there was even a phone there. 10 seconds later, I'm down the road. You know, pretty good ways at this point, and then it dawns on me, hey, dummy, you got a phone right there. But you know, I would have had to have clicked it on, clicked it to camera, clicked it to video, tried to aim while driving. People are always like, well, how do you see one and not get pictures of it? Like, you have a phone right there. I promise you, when an event like this happens, and Daniel, I know you've seen it. It's your brain just kind of checks out for a moment. It's like there it is, and you're just awestruck. You're on a different level at that point. It's like your brain checks out for a second. You're there, but you're not there. And I wished I'd got a video. I really do. In the grand scheme of things, it means nothing though, because people don't believe you. That, oh, that's fake. That's his buddy. I don't have an 8 foot buddy that walks around in a Bigfoot suit. I promise you that. Uh, I've talked to some of the best makeup artists in the world. I go to horror movie conventions, and I've talked to some of the top makeup artists in the world. They said that like the Patty film, there was no way that the Patty film could have been made at the time and looked that good. Planet of the Apes was the best thing we had, and I mean that's pretty obviously not, good for its time for the movie industry. Sure, uh, for Patty, no, that the materials didn't exist, the latex didn't exist. So Um, it's life changing. This has changed my life. Um, I don't look at the world the same anymore. I wish in a way I never saw it, because as long as there's a little doubt, you can kind of play things off. But for those of us who've actually seen these things, you it's different. It's just different from this point on. You can't pass woods and look at them and not think about it. When you hear a strange sound, your mind wants to go there immediately. Even then you can come back and you can straighten some things out. Um, Footprints. I found footprints. Um, there's no explanation for it. I mean, somebody's like, "Oh, somebody's trying to hoax you." So you just had an inkling I was going to walk in this area, and in the middle of November and December, when it's 13 degrees outside, you decide to walk around barefooted and make a 17-inch print that you hope that I'll walk up on and find. It doesn't make sense, you know. Uh, when I saw my Bigfoot, this was gun season in East Tennessee. You're going to tell me that some idiot is going to make some kind of suit that makes him 8 foot tall? First of all, he's going to walk fluidly in this suit right near a road where, let's face it, folks, there's rednecks running around with 30-06s, and you're going to take your chances that you're going to fool somebody into thinking that they're a Bigfoot and they might not take a shot at you. That's too much for me. That's just too much for me to. Um, I know what I saw. I know, and does it bother me when people heckle me about it? A little bit. Yeah, I got tough skin, but uh, I hate it for people who are going to have a bad experience, because not everybody has. I mean, mine was a great experience if you want to look at it that way. It was a roadside. I feel safe in my truck. I have protection right beside me. I mean, it's the gold standard of a good Bigfoot sighting, but not everybody gets that. You know, some people get the ever loving crap scared out of them, um, and I feel sorry for those people. I really do. Uh, that's not very much fun. And there's going to be more people who are going to see these things. It's going to happen again, and they're going to have the life scared out of them. Some of them are, and I truly feel sorry for those people. But I've had screams. I've came outside at 4:30 in the morning, and I've heard the Ohio howl off in the distance in that same area, and 4 long, drawn out. Just, if you've ever heard the Ohio howl, you know what I'm talking about. And screams. I went outside one night and I had some like chicken scraps. I walked out to the tree line. I tossed the chicken scraps. I turned to walk back, and I hear the god awful scream I've ever heard. It was sounded like it was 100 yards away, but right on the back of my head at the same time. And I pretty near peed myself. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Like, it scared the crap out of me. I think I jumped about a foot in the air, and I got my butt in the house real quick. Now I don't like to go outside without a flashlight. I'm the flashlight king. People go, "Oh, are you afraid of the dark?" No, not really. I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of what's in the dark, because I know there are things in the dark. I've got 15 flashlights. I'll buy another one tomorrow. I don't care if I find one I like better. My wife makes fun of me, and I say, "Well, I'll put a flashlight on a flashlight. I want to be able to see when I go out at night." 1,500 looms, take them time after time. I love them. But I've I've tried gifting for a little while, because I wanted to see how things would go with that. I've been told by some people, don't ever gift them. I've been told by others, leave them things that they like. I've heard peanut butter. I've heard tobacco. I left some apples. The only thing that ever got gone was the apples. Can I say that it was Bigfoot that took them? No, I can't. It could have been raccoons. It could have been possums. But I left marbles, stones up in a tree, and I've came back a couple of days later and they were gone, but you could clearly see a set of tracks. It was grass was about that high. You could clearly see a set of tracks walk from the tree line to the tree and then walk about 5 feet the other way to the side and a clear set of tracks walk back to the woods. Okay. Can I prove that was Bigfoot? No. But the tracks were huge and the items were gone. I stopped one day and looked at the woods. Someone said, "Well, address them. Tell them you mean them no harm." I felt a little silly, but I thought, well, I'm gonna try this. So I walked out toward the tree line and I was like, "Hey, I don't mean you guys any harm. If you see a protection on my side, that's just for protection for me. I don't mean anybody any harm, but as I will defend myself." But I walked back to the truck and literally within 30 seconds, I hear a tree limb just snap. I mean, I jumped. It was so loud. Uh, People say, well, it's a coincidence. Was it? Like, it sounded like a clear response to me, like an acknowledgement. That's how I took it. Um, I started getting turkey feathers left. I mowed this cemetery, and every Monday I would go mow, every other Monday, and I started having pristine turkey feathers left in the gate and left right at the gate. I felt like that was a gift. I could be wrong, you know, but it got to be odd that every time I would go mow, there'd be a clean, fresh turkey feather laying. I kept one of them and I put it in my hat, you know. Between the footprints, the screams, my visual, um, other people, I've had multiple people around here tell me they've seen them. Um, there's a guy from a neighboring town. He saw one up on the mountain about 5 miles from here. He was on another podcast talking about it. And his was black. It was not the same one. I heard another podcast where a guy was hunting on the same mountain, but about 5 miles away. And a reddish brown one walked right under his tree stand. Got about 20 feet away and it just stopped like it hurt him or something. He said he didn't breathe, he didn't move, and it just slowly turned and made complete eye contact with him. Scared the crap out of him. And I heard another one on another podcast where right up here on the lake a few miles away, they thought it was somebody coming down the bank going fishing, and they're out there in a boat. So they're like, this guy sounds like he's going to kill himself coming down this bank. Let's turn a light on for him before he hurts himself. And when they clicked the spotlight on and shined it up the bank, it was the old kind where you had to click it on the battery in the boat. They said a Bigfoot hit the water and started swimming toward him. And he said the head was the size of a 5-gallon bucket in the water. And it's not just in the water, it's coming straight for them. And they cranked the boat up and they cracked on down the lake. Said they never even lifted on the motor till they were 3 miles down the lake. I had a friend recently tell me that when he was a teenager, him and his dad were fishing on the same lake, and he was tying a lure on, and he just looked up the bank, and 30 foot up the bank is a 7-foot black Bigfoot just staring at him, not doing anything. He's just checking them out. I don't know if it was curious or what, but his dad is a minister, and he just, Dad, look. And his dad was like, I'm doing something. Don't bother me. And he's like, Dad, no, you got to see this. Look now. And his dad turned and looked, made eye contact with the Bigfoot, and just turned back around and just cranked the boat up and pulled away. And when they got to the boat ramp, his son was like, Dad, and he's like, we didn't see anything. Goes, what do you mean we didn't see anything? You know what we just saw. He goes, we didn't see anything, boy, and don't bring it up again. And to this day, his dad will not talk about it. It's out of his belief system. And I understand that. I mean, I'm a Christian. I don't understand a lot of this. I want to understand it. I spend a lot of time trying to understand this. And I don't have a lot of answers. It's in fact, I usually wind up with more questions than I get answers. But as long as I'm breathing, I'm going to try to figure this out. How I need to know from me. Uh, I don't want to be famous. I'm not worried about being famous. I'm not worried about bringing the evidence in. I do want to know. I mean, I want to know what is going on here. It's crazy to me. People constantly ask me, well, how do they live in the woods all the time? I don't know. I maybe caves. Caves has always been a go-to for people. I don't know. Um, I feel like with what the Indians have said, the Indians have been talking about them for hundreds and hundreds of years. Indians in Florida, Indians in California, Native Americans, if I'm not using the proper PC terms, but they all have names for them. I think one time I heard someone say there's over 400 different names for Bigfoot. And how could I mean, like this didn't start in the 50s. This didn't start with that road crew or that logging crew in California. That's not where this started. This has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. Um, I'm pretty sure I heard that the Vikings even said when they first got here, they saw 10-foot tall, hairy people in the woods. So it's been going on a long time. This is not something new. And I just hope that within my lifetime, I get some kind of answers. If not, so be it. Um, I'm not special. A lot of people have these experiences, and I'm sure there's a lot more people who don't talk about it. And I get why they don't talk about it. Not everybody can handle the ridicule. I'll take it. I'll take my lumps because the more I talk about it, the more people that come to me and tell me about their experiences. And it's worth the few lumps that I take to get their stories. You know, I uh, I just like I said, I feel sorry for people who don't have the outlet. And the whole mind speak thing, I this is I talked about it with Harley Owens, and I feel like it's important that I come forward. I feel like it's important that I leave some kind of information behind because it happened. Am I supposed to act like it didn't happen? Is that going to further this subject in any way if I just pretend like it didn't happen? No, I mean, like, we've got to start talking. We've got to start trusting each other, and we have to start getting this information out there. And maybe someday, you know, we'll get the answers we're looking for. But thanks for listening to me.
Bro, you're not done though. You hinted towards a UFO sighting.
Yeah.
Let's hear about that, and then I'll ask all my questions.
Okay. It was around 2022. I was with one of my friends. He's my tattoo guy. I like my tattoos, and I even marked myself with the beast. So I know some people don't like that, but um, I just got through getting a tattoo, and we're locking up the shop where the last one's out. This is about 20 miles away in another county, and as he's locking the door, I turn around and I see this huge greenish blue color. It goes from skyline to skyline. By the time I can rotate my body, it clears the entire skyline. It was the size of a two-story house. It made zero sound. It was probably 500 to 600 feet off the ground. And I mean, it's just zips across the sky. And then when it gets to the far skyline, it splits into two. One part goes left, one part goes right. It's gone. It's just, I mean, it was a 3 second visual. And my buddy's like, "Are you freaking kidding me? I've waited my entire life just to see anything." And because I was locking the door, I didn't get to see it. He goes, "You know how bad that sucks?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm so sorry." Like, but now that I've seen that, was it man made? I don't know. It could be man made. It's hard for me to fathom how anything made by man can travel at that speed. It it had to have been doing at least, I'd say, 1,000 mile an hour to go from skyline to skyline. By the time you can rotate your body, I mean, I don't see how human organs could withstand that. I mean, it could it be mechanical? Sure. Could we have made it? That's, I mean, they're keeping stuff from us. I know the government has stuff that they have to keep secret from us. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was huge, it was fast, and it was quiet.
Man, oh man, I feel sorry for your tattoo artist because yeah, that's pretty incredible. Again, when it comes to UFOs, I'm a military brat and I lived around military bases. I was lucky enough to live near Fort Lewis and McCord Air Force Base. I was fortunate enough to live near Buckley Air Station in Colorado. SR-71's flown in and out of there. So when I was like sixth, seventh grade, um, I've seen the SR-71 flying, and
Mhm.
that was the very first model I ever put together. After seeing that, I had to go find a model because I used to put models together, you know. But it was like the very first plane I'd ever put together because I was,
Yeah,
my mom, I was used to putting like battleships together and trucks and cars, and then I see this airplane and I'm like, there's got to be a model out there.
yeah,
Um, so when it comes to trying to identify something, whenever I see something, whether it's Bigfoot, dog man, if it doesn't fit in a box that I already have in my head, then I try to sit there and debunk it. Like I
yeah,
think most sensible people do. Um, but when it comes to UFOs, you know, I think I have a leg up on some. I was in the Air Force.
yeah,
I've seen just hundreds of different aircraft, both prop and jet. Um, and the UFO I saw, even to this time, I don't think that we have anything like this. And if we
mhm,
do, it is so hush hush. And if we do, it's not at Area 51 because civilians have Area 51 scoped out. I
yeah,
know there's probably another installation somewhere in the United States that is so remote and that no one knows about it, that there's stuff, you know. But yeah, like you said, it went clear across the horizon in the span of you just turning. It was first you saw it here, and before you got all the way over here, it was already down this way, split into two, and then gone, which is crazy. Um, so did when it split in two, did it like split in two, or did it like split in two this way?
it just like it was like two balls that just spread apart from each other.
Oh, okay.
It was
And
like you're looking at it, it was going this way.
yep,
They parted, and one went toward the left, one went toward the right, and once they split, they just, I mean, it's like it got faster.
yeah,
It went from I can see you to I can't see you.
wow, yeah,
Yeah, that's why I knew it had to be something. To me, it had to be something otherworldly because I just don't see how we could generate anything that could withstand those G forces.
yeah. Oh no, it's crazy. And it's funny. I'm gonna jump back over to Bigfoot. So, one you heard you need to leave, and then seconds later you heard you need to leave now. When you first heard you need to leave, did it kind of like bring you out of whatever state you're in to where you kind of like just turned and looked around? Like you're thinking you're hearing that outside, like there's someone standing next to you or right behind you or something. Is that the feeling you got at first?
No, it was definitely like I knew it was in my brain. Like I heard it in my brain.
Okay.
It didn't feel like somebody standing behind me. It didn't feel like somebody spoke to me. It was clear and forceful
Okay.
in, in my head. Like, and it wasn't my voice.
Right.
It wasn't an internal voice like, "Oh, hey, brother, this ain't cool. We might have to leave."
Yeah.
This was a very it was not me. It was not my thoughts. It was not an internal thought. It was something invading my head.
Hmm. And so on Christmas, excuse me there. You said you were up at about 8 in the morning and you were heading out over to your mom's house.
Yeah.
And then your wife was like, "Hey, I saw this giant buck," which I'm gonna be honest with you. If I took myself out of the woods and then my wife tells me, "Oh, I saw this buck," it's 12 or 14 point. So up here, it's a 6x6 or 7x7. Yeah, I'm instantly going back in the woods because that's a deer of a lifetime, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so you left around 8 in the morning,
It's about 8:30. Yeah.
about 8:30. So about what time was it when you saw this big fella?
It's just like a mile from the house, not very far.
Okay.
I mean, it was still like 8:34, 8:35. I
Yeah.
mean, it was daylight. There
Okay.
was enough light that I had very good light to see by.
And so it's just now, is it, you said it's walking off in the woods. Now, what does the side of this road look like? Is it like up on a little ridge, little hill, or is it flat? Like kind of the woods are like parallel with the, or vertical with the um
It starts out kind of flat and then gradually gets vertical. But the vision, I mean, this was in December.
mhm,
All the leaves are gone off the trees. It's brown. There's not much vegetation. I had a very good view.
awesome.
It's probably some 30 and 40-inch trees up there. And it was kind of going from tree to tree, but like it wasn't trying to hide.
Right.
It was like it was oblivious that I was even there.
Just doing his thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That's the more I thought about it, I was like, maybe that was a distraction. I've heard people say that if one comes out in the open like that, it's maybe distracting you from another one.
possibly. And I've heard
And
that as well,
yeah,
you know.
so maybe there was something to my right that it didn't want me to see. So maybe it walked that way to draw my attention. I don't
So
know. That's purely speculation.
so, when I lived in Tennessee, we didn't get a lot of snow. But just
Yeah.
recently, I wanna say probably like in the last 8 years, Tennessee has just been getting, like, substantial snow. And was there snow on the ground at this time?
No,
No,
no. It
so
was it was dead and brown. Everything was dead and brown. You know
so
what I
brown.
mean? So yes, it was dismal looking. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Eh,
Because I
The
think if
bad
they're
I went back a week later and actually did a video
mhm,
of me driving by to recreate it. I wanted to make sure to prove to myself that I didn't see something that wasn't there.
right.
And I had that video for a long time, and I lost my phone. And when I lost my phone, I lost a lot of my stuff.
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, I did have the exact conditions recorded on my phone from a week after that,
right.
and that's all gone. You
And
know,
could you imagine if
I
there
should
was
use the
snow on the
cloud.
ground?
There was
Could you
no.
ima no, but could you imagine if there was snow on the ground on how much more that thing would have popped?
Oh yeah,
Like, I mean, just the color that you described, like a reddish brown
it's kind of like a
and
cinnamon cow,
like a what?
a cinnamon chow dog,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
reddish brown kind of look.
Yep. Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've hunted and I've been up in a tree stand where there's s- a lot of snow on the ground and stuff just pops.
Yeah,
Deer stick out, any animal that moves around, even doesn't move around, it sticks out, and you're like, man. But so you said that it when you heard the mind speak, that's when it changed your life.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and how exactly did it change your life?
Well, I was all happy-go-lucky. I'm the king of the woods. I had a 22 rifle in my hand and felt invincible in that area. I mean, with a 22, I felt like I'm the king of the woods here.
Mhm.
And then now I know that there's something out there that I can't put in a box. I couldn't even see what scared me.
Yeah.
How am I going to fight something that I didn't even see?
Yeah. I feel you.
I've got much bigger guns now. I got a Henry 44 Magnum, and I got it loaded with 320 grain, flat nose, hard tip,
Mhm.
grizzly bear rounds.
Mhm.
That'll do me a lot of good if I can't put it on target,
Mhm.
you know. And I've heard other people say they've seen them running and they were faster than deer.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be awful hard to get on target.
Now, I sent Josh a video, and I wanna say it was taken, like, in 2000, I wanna believe it's in Florida, and it's a video of a skunk ape, like, running through this marsh, like, no problem, you know? So, I mean, you just gotta think about a lot of people who, "Oh, well, I would do this or I would do that," and you said it, you had a phone right next to you the entire time, and that was the absolute last thing on your mind. When I had
Yeah,
mine counter, when I was 12, when I had my sighting, okay, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have flip phones. We were
yeah,
lucky if we had a 35 millimeter camera, you know, but again, at between 10 and 11 at night, you're just driving home. You see some eyes shine up above, and when you get close enough and your dad hits the brights and the driving lights at the same time and it lights up the whole area, the last thing you expect to see is one of these creatures,
yeah,
And like you said, you were told, go up and talk to it, announce yourself, don't sound aggressive. That's what my dad did later in that thing. Hey,
yeah,
we saw you. You saw us. These are my boys. We're family. We just want to live in peace. We don't mean no harm. We don't mean any disrespect. And I think if you do that, the outcome of potential future encounters with them, if it's with the same one or if it's part of a family unit, it's a good possibility that this one goes back and communicates like, "Hey, there's this man over here. He knows we're here, and I heard him talking, and he was, hey." A lot of people say, that they understand our language.
yeah,
You know, again, I don't know that for certain, but I've heard a lot of people saying that they understand the English language.
yeah,
And, I think that it's just if you show them the amount of respect that they deserve, because just on the sheer fact that they are massive apex predators,
hmm,
they can do anything they want to do,
yeah,
you know, if they want to, and you're lucky you didn't get one of those average size boogers, with those averaged, because let me ask you this. What did it look more like? Because I'm sure you've seen drawings or renditions
yeah.
of what a wood burger looks like versus a skunk ape versus something coming out of Ohio, the grass man, and then Patty and whatever else is up in the Pacific Northwest.
I would say, I only saw it from behind. I never saw the front,
Hmm.
and it looked more like Patty from behind.
Okay.
It was. I compare it. I tell everybody, take Shaquille O'Neal and cover him with hair.
Wow.
It was no sagittal crest. It was rounded,
Okay.
very very little to no neck, boxy but not ungodly huge. I've heard some people say 5 feet at the shoulders. I don't think this one was 5 feet at the shoulders. I think it
Mhm.
was close to 8 feet tall. It was athletically built, but not monstrously built.
Right.
Reddish brown hair, about 3 to 4 inches, maybe I'd say close to 4 inches. And
Yeah.
it was taking strides that looked like 5 foot with each stride. But it didn't look like it was effortlessly moving. It wasn't running. It wasn't in a hurry. It didn't look like it was just strolling through the woods,
Yeah. But it was like a very fluid motion.
very fluid. Yeah.
Because like if you and I or anybody else is gonna walk through the woods, we're bebopping, you know. We're clumsy in a
Mhm.
sense that you look at how these things move, and it's just like a fluid, silky motion, you know, versus
Yeah.
how we move. And we're
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
clumsy when it comes, even though we can say we're graceful, and we don't trip over things, but
Yeah.
the fluidity of our motions are very clumsy compared to theirs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It was very, very, very fluid. No, we have to look as we take every step,
yeah,
especially if you're in the woods, because you don't want to step in a hole or trip over a rock or something like that. I mean, it wasn't looking down.
yeah,
It was straight ahead, all business, walking forward. It just, like I said, it just paid me no attention whatsoever. Which, looking back on it, really blows my mind. For as much as they sneak and hide and are just not out in the open. This I've heard Steve Isdor say sometimes that it's like one that just got here. Like it didn't know it wasn't supposed to be seen.
yeah.
And that's
Oh, for
kind of
sure.
what it feels like. The more I think about it now,
Mhm.
it's like it didn't know it was supposed to not be seen by me.
Yeah.
Either that or it was just like, I don't give a crap about you. You mean nothing to me.
Yep, exactly.
You know?
And then it's if you know how to get a hold of those people that they lit up the shore of the lake and this thing comes walking into the water and coming towards their boat, if you know how to get a hold of those people, please do for me. I would love to hear their story.
That was from the 70s, actually.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, that's I heard it I can't remember which podcast it was on. It was on a podcast, and that story was from the mid to late 70s. I'm wanting to say around 77, 78.
I might have to look for that.
Yeah.
Because that's an incredible story. Just you gave me the heebie-jeebies. Just as you said, its head was as big as a 5-gallon bucket, and it was swimming
Yeah.
towards the boat.
Yeah. They were
Yeah.
they were certain that it was coming to them. It wasn't avoiding them. It came down the bank,
Mhm.
made its way to the water, slipped in. They said they thought the fisherman was being clumsy and slipped and fell on the bank, but it was him, or I say him, it was it entering the water.
No.
So they put it's one of those old clamp lights where
Yep.
you had to clamp it to your boat battery.
Mhm.
It's probably a couple of hundred looms back then in the 70s. It's not going to be anything like what we have now.
No.
And I call them like a miner light, like miners would have.
Yep.
And as soon as he swung it up there, I mean, it was eye contact. He said its head was the size of a 5-gallon bucket and it was swimming toward them.
No. Sorry. Yep. My boat would have been like one of those racing boats in they do up in Washington State, up on Lake
Sure.
Washington. No, thank you.
Yeah. That's a change your underwear moment.
Oh, absolutely. One of the I mean, I've heard a lot of scary encounters, of Bigfoot, but I want to say the scariest one that I've heard that a person has told me is Fred from Alaska. I don't know if you know who he is. He's episode 10 on my channel, and he tells about the one that reached into the cabin and tried to get a hold of him.
Ooh.
Like, yeah, so it's check out episode 10 on my channel, and it is that's Fred's encounters are amazing. I'm gonna try to get him back on the show. So I'm coming up on close to 80 episodes now. So I got some that are banked waiting to be released. But yeah,
Yeah.
so Robbie, I want to say thank you so much for coming on, man. I truly appreciate it. Bro, Christmas Day Bigfoot, man. That's going to be a great thumbnail title. So, um, I
I
pre-
mean, it just happened that way. So, I mean, it kind of rolls, but
yeah, I appreciate it, man. I really do coming on and sharing your encounters, the mind speak issue, and again, you know, everybody, and this, everybody's not going to believe any of this because
yeah,
it didn't happen the way. If they had an encounter, it didn't happen the same way their encounter did. Like your encounters didn't happen the same way as mine, but
yeah,
characteristics are the same, you know?
yeah,
There are small aspects of your encounter that happen with my encounter,
yeah.
So
Yours and your brothers. I mean, like every time I hear you tell it, my heart breaks for you. Like I can feel your pain in your story. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I know you're not. I know you didn't make that up.
yeah,
I can tell. Uh, I'm pretty good at judge a character when it comes to people. And, just some people, that's the reason I wanted to do your show is because I feel like you're genuine. I feel like I could talk to you as a person
right,
and I feel like I connect to you, even
yeah,
though, we've only spoken, very little,
mhm.
but you and Josh are just real people.
I
You know what I
appreciate
mean?
that,
And
man.
that means a lot to me. And I couldn't have this conversation with a lot of people, especially the first time,
Yeah,
because I feel pretty vulnerable when I tell it.
that's
And
I know that
it's
feeling, man.
you were vulnerable when you told your story about you and your brother.
Yeah.
So I feel like I can relate to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Josh and I tried to build a safe community for anybody and everybody to come on and share their encounters. Now, I want to believe 100% of everybody's encounters.
Yeah.
But there are some that I've had on that I believe a lot of their encounters. Do I believe that maybe some people might have elaborated a little bit? Absolutely.
Mhm.
But that they're trying to put more substance into the story,
Yeah.
because I mean, I've had people that have come on, well, I saw this and this happened, that happened, and then I was like, whoa, holy smokes. And then I was like this, and that's my story. And I know there's more to that story,
Yeah.
and so that's why I try to get people to really I try to I want to put them back into that place. I wanna push as far as I possibly can with them without
Yeah.
put them into a place where now they wanna lock up, they don't wanna have those bad memories come back. Um,
Yeah.
and the security, the comfort of my guests are first and foremost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want the great story because I love hearing all these encounters, but I don't want you to stress or any of the guests to stress over any part of your story. If it's rough for you to relive, then let's take a break, or let's reschedule. I've rescheduled. I was I mean, I can't tell you how many guests that I've had on that wanted to reschedule because they were just having a moment. And that's 100% fine with me. I would never, and if they never reschedule, I don't hold that against them at all because I understand what it's like to be put in a position when you're looking at something that just isn't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
You hear all these fantastic stories growing up. You see these amazing TV shows with these amazing actors that are just so powerful, when we're kids, you know, it's Mr. Spock, Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
This guy was like he's the dude.
Yeah.
And now he's doing In Search Of, and it's Bigfoot. And then you hear about, the legend of Boggy Creek. And you're like, "What?"
Yeah.
And then you see the pat I'm getting goosebumps thinking about the first time I saw these these little clips, these movies or these TV shows, and how it just warped my mind. Not in a sense of it made me a scary person, but it just brought a whole new world, you know? Because I mean, I heard about Loch Ness Monster before I ever heard about Bigfoot. I know I
Yeah.
did. That was huge. And living up in Washington State, you're like, well, I'm never gonna get over to Ireland or Scotland or wherever it's at to see Nessie,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you discover the Patterson Gimlin film.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, that's in California? Well, I'm only a kid. I'm never gonna get to go down to California. Little do you know that the state that I'm living in is the Bigfoot capital of the world.
Yeah.
And like you said, you mentioned 4 stories, 4 different people, 4 different podcasts. I'm willing to put that maybe 1 of those have been reported to the BFRO.
Yeah.
1. Is yours reported to the BFRO?
Nope.
Mine's not.
Nope.
None of mine are. None of my
I've
encounters are.
I met Cliff. I talked to him briefly,
Mhm.
and I've met Dave Politis. Talked to him,
Yeah,
and
my oldest brother knows David Politis.
oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'm
I
trying
made him.
to
I made him a big plaque and a knife and everything, and
yeah.
he genuinely was appreciative.
Mhm.
And that made it all worth it to me.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
his very next episode, he actually talked about me. He didn't use my name,
Mhm.
and I don't even think I gave him my name. But and you could tell it touched him that I took the time, or that was his words. He
Yeah,
said a very humble man took the time to make something for me,
yeah,
and I appreciate that.
yeah. And that's how I feel whenever someone like you, out of the blue, you contacted me.
Mhm.
Out of the blue. And you want, "Hey, I'd like to share my story." And that's how I feel every time. Yeah, I may put posts out and ask, like, "Hey, if anybody's had some, email me, whatever." You know, do I hope someone emails me? Yeah. Do I expect someone to? No, I don't. And when I get those emails and I'm like, "Wow, this guy's really taking a chance," because I'm still new at this, and they're taking a chance and they're entrusting me with a very life-changing, intimate event that happened, and I can relate to these people, and I'm relating with people from all walks of life. Whether you're the country boy up in the hills in Appalachia or the deep woods of West Virginia, up in Pacific Northwest, or you're hanging down on the coast in Florida, and you've had these encounters, we all have something in common.
Yeah.
And I get people asking me, well, how come this, and how do they do this, and how do you know it's real? And one of my biggest things is, well, have you ever seen a giraffe in the wild? Well, no, but they're real,
Yeah.
you know. And then some people, and I've even got religious with people. Have you ever seen God? Well, no. Do you believe in God? Yes. But how do you know he's real? I just know he's real.
Yeah.
And I never question anybody's faith because I'm a very spiritual person myself. My
Yeah.
relationship with Jesus is first and foremost in my life. It's
Yeah.
it's Jesus, my wife, my kids, my grandkids, my family. That's the you know the line, so to
Yeah.
speak. So for me to tell someone that they're dumb or crazy and they haven't seen what they say, I'm just doing myself a just service because I've seen it. You know.
Yeah.
So, well, my friend, the time has come. Thank you so much for coming on. If you want to hang out for a couple minutes in the lobby, uh, I'll play a couple audios for you. All right.
Okay.
All right. So
Sounds
hang
good.
out in the lobby.
All right.
Everybody, that's Robbie. Robbie, thanks for coming on the show. All
Thank you.
right. Not a problem, brother. Hey, so you guys, again, that's Robbie. Great guest, great encounter. Whether you believe it or not, when it comes to mind speak, um, that's it's all open for interpretation. I'm not going to sit here and tell Robbie, no, you did not hear anything in your mind, because I've never heard anything in my mind. It doesn't work that way, because I've heard many, many, many people say they've heard mind speak. Don't go near there. It's not going to be a good thing for you. You need to leave right now. Listen, if you're smart, you might want to take a different route. You know, they're warning you, they're helping you, whatever they're doing. Okay. So, you guys, with that being said, again, if you have had an encounter and you'd like to come on the show, please shoot me an email at the Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com. The Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com. And as Josh from Mysteries Unknown always says, stay prayed up, everyone. And as I always like to say, remember, a legend begins with a sighting. You guys have a fantastic night, and I'll see you again soon.
I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?